Crossfire X is kind of a confusing game. Well, that's actually not true, at least not on the surface. It's a multiplayer first-person shooter that's free to play with a live service game model, like a battle pass, cosmetic items, and a built-in currency, and all that other bullshit that every other multiplayer game has in order to milk as much money from every consumer as possible. Now, the difference between Crossfire X and some of the other free-to-play games that have been launched recently is that this is actually a sequel/spin-off to a very popular free-to-play game that launched way back in 2007 from Smilegate Entertainment that was simply called Crossfire. It was essentially a carbon copy of Counter-Strike, but it absolutely exploded in popularity throughout Asia. And this meant that it's one of the most played games of all time, with over 1 billion accounts, tons of active users still, and a metric shit ton of money made. There's even a TV show based off of Crossfire in China, apparently. This is Halo Call of Duty levels of popularity, just not really over here in the West. There are several spin-offs of the game as well, such as a mobile version that's basically just a PUBG mobile clone, an HD remaster, a Battle Royale version, and an RTS spin-off too. Oh boy. And then, finally, in an attempt to break into the Western market, they partnered with Xbox to make Crossfire X, recently released on the Xbox. It is an exclusive, which of course limits the amount of people that will be likely to play it. You're not going to have 1 billion accounts on Crossfire X, but it also means that there are some new possibilities that are open to you. For instance, this is the first campaign that Crossfire has included in any of their games, but it was created entirely by a separate developer, with Remedy Entertainment taking over for the solo campaign and Smilegate handling the multiplayer. As such, this review needs to split into sections just like the game is. Yo, this shit sucks. The controls and feel of the game are just bad. It feels like it was not meant to be played with a controller. The menu itself uses a little cursor like you're using a mouse and keyboard, but this is a console exclusive game, so no one is using a mouse. It makes navigating the menu itself feel terrible, not to mention the interface of the menu itself being cluttered and confusing and just strange. When I first booted up the game, I was met with multiple pop-up menus and I had no idea what any of them were, only to find out quickly that they were trying to get me to spend money on the battle pass or cosmetic items available through the store. Then you actually get into the game. There are 2 base options to choose from in multiplayer: Classic and Modern. Modern has features like aim down sights, sprint, and kill streaks that have grown popular in shooters like, I don't know, what's a modern shooter about modern war? Oh, I know, Call of Duty. It's just trying to augment Crossfire to appeal to people who play Call of Duty. Classic is more like Counter-Strike. No aim down sights, headshot damage is deadly, buy your guns through a menu at the start of a round, all the same hallmarks of a classic Counter-Strike, and in turn then Crossfire as well. There are several modes to choose from within Modern or Classic, but I'm not even going to bother describing them. It's all the same basic shit except for one mode called Spectre Mode, where players are trying to plant a bomb, but they are invisible with only knives, and the other team's trying to stop them. It's kind of like a zombies mode in Halo, but a little different, and that mode's pretty fun. Every other mode is just TDM, search and destroy, domination. There are basically no maps to choose from. Like, each game mode only has one map in the rotation, so you just play that same map over and over again. So there's a total of 5 maps available at launch. I also played the beta for Crossfire X in June, which was 8 months ago before the launch, and it was exactly the same. Like, literally no different at all. I figured that with the amount of time in between the beta and the actual release of the game, there would be some sort of additional content added in, especially since Crossfire already has older material that they could pull from to add into the game, especially because a lot of people in the West have never played those maps or modes in the older Crossfire titles, but they didn't have anything. Now, the game's free to play, so I'm assuming they're going to be adding in content slowly over time, as is the usual course of most games that have been released for the past 2 years in order to manipulate their player base into sticking around. But it was a little strange that it was literally unchanged from the beta. Like, what exactly were they doing at Smilegate for the past 8 months other than counting their mountains of cash? Well, they certainly weren't developing more content for the game, that's for sure. There are basically no weapons, with only a few available when you launch the game initially, and then the rest hidden behind a pay or time wall. You can unlock weapons naturally, but that requires actually playing the game in order to get the currency, which is not something I would want to punish anyone with. The actual gameplay feels clunky, the guns and characters do not control well, there's a total lack of precision in everything, from the movement to the firing of the weapons. The actual base of the game is based around set spawn areas, which makes it really easy to spawn trap enemy teams and earn huge kill streaks because you can just block them from leaving. This is something that was probably normal in 2000 game development standards, but now it just feels cheap and lazy. The spawn protection is some turrets that will kill you if you go directly into the enemy spawn, but that's pretty much it. You can get killed immediately as soon as you spawn from multiple directions on multiple maps. It's just lazy planning and execution, because if they actually invested time and effort into a spawn system, that would be easily solved. The game also just looks bad. Like, I'm not really a graphics snob in any way. I prefer style over straight realism, but the game has no style since it just relies on big boys soldier aesthetics, camo, tattoos, lots of belts and straps and Velcro vests. And it also looks bad while doing it. Even the design elements that are supposed to be cool, like the gun skins from the Battle Pass or the Reaper kill streak, also just look really lame. Like, maybe if I was 9 years old, then this would be cool to me, but most 9-year-olds are obsessively playing Fortnite or Roblox, and even they would not waste their time with a game like Crossfire X. The only moderately interesting idea is the power-up menu, I guess is what you would call it, at the start of a match, where you can allocate 3 points to 4 different options to improve the performance of your soldier. This is in the modern mode, by the way. It could be your fire rate, sprint time, or defense. This adds some small variety to each match, although that is the literal end of the variety because there's only one map per game mode, a few weapons to choose from, and only a few game modes really to choose from as well. I don't mean to be like really nitpicky here, but people whine and complain about modern multiplayer shooters all the time. Halo Infinite has been shit on for a lack of content, and there is literally 10 times the amount of content within that game compared to Crossfire X, and they both cost the exact same amount. Free. Comparing this to other free-to-play shooters makes it look even worse. Splitgate is not my favorite game, but it's loads better than this. Fortnite, Warzone, Apex are all different genres on their surface since they're battle royales, but these have years of content updates, characters, guns, skins, and polish to choose from, as well as having super active communities as well. Enlisted, Vigor, Rogue Company, Warface, PUBG, Destiny 2 are all free-to-play games that have so much more polish than this game. I think the days of a shit-ass free-to-play game coming out and surviving are pretty much long gone. People's patience simply is not there, and rightly so. There are too many options to choose from of readily accessible games that you can download quickly and easily, that if a game sucks, it's incredibly easy to just move on to something else. This is kind of why I don't understand why so many people harp on specific games that suck or that they do not like. If that's the case, you could just move on to something else. Although, I am the one making a video about a game that I don't like, so I guess the egg's on my face. Long story short, the multiplayer just blows. So let's talk about the single player campaign. The single player aspect of Crossfire X is new to the game franchise. It's split into 2 different campaign sections. They were both developed by Remedy Entertainment, who has some seriously good games in their back catalog, like Max Payne, Alan Wake, Control, and Quantum Break. It makes sense why they would get picked to take on the single-player campaign portions, since they already have a pretty good mind around storytelling and gameplay intertwining. Also, the campaign uses their game engine. It should be noted, the campaign does cost money. Half of it comes with Game Pass, and the other half was like $8 when I bought it, but it's separate from the free-to-play multiplayer section of the game. Let's start off by saying the 2 portions of the game could not feel any different. The look, feel, quality of animation, gunplay, controls, and dynamics are all much better in the campaign as compared to the multiplayer. You could tell that they had some serious firepower developers taking over for the campaign who knew what they were doing. The actual gameplay and AI in the campaign felt pretty good overall. It was a challenge without being overly difficult, and while each encounter with enemies felt very samey after a short while. Basically just point and shoot and kill, just like Call of Duty or Battlefield campaigns. Each mission has some huge set-piece moment that's set up through corridors or small arenas with waves of enemies to take on and kill. The enemies are incredibly basic, the guns are very basic, and the enemy interactions are all very basic. But it's done in a competent way that makes me kind of shrug and say, yeah, this is kind of like Call of Duty, sure, it's okay. And being like Call of Duty is not bad. There's a reason why millions of people buy those games every year, and a big part of it is the tight gunplay and quick twitch reactions that's at the heart of those games. That's basically what's happening with this campaign as well. There are some basic collectibles to find, some basic added mechanics of slow-mo vision, basically the same as every other Remedy game. I think they just like slow-mo. You can do a sweet slide that makes you move incredibly fast. There are some moments that require stealth. You can change the optics of your gun, and some other sort of random included things like that, which are kind of neat, but totally on the periphery of the gameplay. You could go the entire campaign without utilizing any of those things, or even realizing that they exist, honestly. So the gameplay is just surface level basic, but at least it works well compared to the multiplayer. The problem though is length. It took me a total of about 5 hours to beat both campaigns. I even died a couple of times and had to replay some sections, but it still barely reached 5 hours. That's just too short for any campaign in general in my mind. The first campaign was called Operation Catalyst, and it has you play as a global risk soldiers so-and-so, what's his face, and the guy who betrays you. A killer squad of homies sent in to check out what the hell Blacklist, the bad guys, for now, are doing. Then the leader of your squad gets captured, and your main player character starts having strange dreams of his home, and also his friend telling him to come find him. But it's all super rushed and confusing. I thought it would make more sense as time went on, but I was wrong. It never makes any sense. Apparently, there's some sort of supercomputer that has the power to accurately predict the future, and Kavanaugh, the squad leader, is being used in this computer to predict a future world war. That is what the plotline of the game is, because every game like this has to have huge, world-ending consequences in store around every corner. The characters are bland as hell, with the only moderately interesting one being the guy who ends up betraying you and then getting triple-crossed by Blacklist, and everyone else in the game sucks. There's all sorts of random dead ends, like the inclusion of a wife in cutscenes, a random guy who looks like a final boss in a helicopter but who just disappears, and the fact that these characters basically just straight up disappear after this campaign in general, like they literally don't matter. Pretty much all of it was pretty cringy. You get to watch a lot of cool, badass military things happen, but almost all of them happen in cutscenes. It doesn't make you feel like a cool military man pretty much at all. And there's also like no camaraderie between the teammates except for Hall, who has like a big time crush on Kavanaugh. Like, I'm convinced that's why the wife is included, because she's the one who's standing in the way of Hall actually being with his true love, Kavanaugh. If this was actually the subtext the game was going for, I'd be all for it, because I think that gay characters should be more represented in the military, but I don't think that's the actual intent here. So those characters get away with Kavanaugh and his super brain to predict the future, and the next campaign has you play as Blacklist operatives. This is kind of cool, where you get to see the two sides of the coin, but this campaign was even shorter, clocking in at like 90 minutes. It's called Operation Poopy Pants. I don't remember what it was called, I'm not gonna lie. You start as a criminal heading to prison, but he's supposed to be this future super soldier, so Global Force... that's not what it's called. So Global Risk... I can't even fucking remember. Okay. So Global Risk tries to take him out because they saw it in the brain visions of the future. Except, in doing so, they inadvertently create the super soldier. Oh no, time travel dilemma. So you play as Louise, and he learns to be a guy with a gun who shoots people. You have a badass tattooed beard man who helps you, and then he explodes. And then you have this lady with a hood who then betrays your team and shoots you because she doesn't want you to become the super soldier either, I guess. But it doesn't really matter. You kill the evil bad general, you get the cool invisible suit, and you stab lots of people with a knife. There's a little tidbit at the end too, where apparently you clone yourself or something, or you like rip the fabric of space-time. Obviously, it's not explained, and obviously there's not going to be any sequel to it. I don't really understand the plotline at all, but it sucks. It's just trying to be this big, bombastic war game, but it's so far from being grounded at all that it just doesn't make any sense. There's no one to root for. There are references to things that we have no idea about as the audience. There's no character that you can really care about. And there's just no fun in the storyline at all. They also do the, oh no, your team member betrayed you twice in a game that's only 5 hours long. That's so fucking sad. They literally were so lazy in writing this game, they had to reuse the same plot twist 2 times. I honestly think the developers thought, well, maybe somebody will only play the one campaign, so it's okay if we do the same thing twice, you know? The cutscenes of watching cool things happen get old really fast, even though the game does look pretty, especially compared to the multiplayer. But everything else about the game is so underwhelming. Every single Call of Duty campaign just blows this out of the water in terms of quality. And I don't think those games are good either. I can't imagine anyone downloading this game, either for the single player or the multiplayer, and being happy with the time spent on it. I think it's becoming more and more clear how much COVID has impacted developers on a pretty major scale, causing games to launch that are underwhelming or just straight broken. I don't think it's a great excuse to forgive all the sins of these companies that are looking for cash grabs for busted or underdeveloped games, but it does help understand the circumstances of why so many bad games are being released within close proximity of each other. Anyway, Crossfire X sucks really bad. Bye.